Dad, I'm sorry for everything." Just 3 weeks before Rob Reiner passed away, those words traveled through a phone line, trembling with weight and regret. For the first time in his life, the once proud father lowered his guard and admitted what he had never said out loud. He confessed that he had been wrong to indulge Nick for so long, and wrong to let Jake grow up as the child who always had to give way. In that moment, father and son broke down together, not from resentment, but from finally seeing one another clearly. After that call, Jake booked a flight from Houston, ready to return to Los Angeles and see his parents. What he didn't know was that the conversation had already become a farewell. On December 14th, tragedy struck. His parents were murdered in their own bedroom, and the person responsible was the very younger brother Jake had loved throughout his childhood. Any healing that had just begun collapsed instantly. Inside, Jake, regret and rage took hold. Regret for not coming home sooner. Rage because Nick was still using their parents' money to hire elite lawyers to defend himself. Jake swore he would do everything in his power to make sure Nick would never escape accountability. To the public, Rob Reiner had always appeared to be a devoted, loving father. He put his children above everything else. At premieres, he would stop to straighten Jake's tie, smiling for the cameras and saying, "This is Jake, my greatest pride." Those moments made Jake feel protected in the overwhelming world of fame. Even in crowded, high-pressure spaces, Rob remained attentive to his son's emotions. When Jake was only 10 years old and became overwhelmed at a Hollywood party, Rob immediately took him aside and gently asked if he was tired, offering to take him home without hesitation. The world admired the way Rob raised his children in public, always encouraging confidence and individuality. But only after his father passed away did Jake find the courage to speak the truth he had kept hidden for so many years. Behind closed doors, the family dynamic was far more complicated. Jake grew up in a house where favoritism was subtle but unmistakable. Rob and Michelle often favored the younger children. Nick, with his volatile temper and difficult nature, was frequently indulged so he could release his anger freely. Jake witnessed countless explosive outbursts from his brother, moments when even mild discipline caused their parents to rush in, sometimes apologizing on Nick's behalf right in front of him. Romwy, the youngest, was protected in a different way, gently shielded in every emotion and interest. Jake was expected to give way so that she could always be prioritized. He was not weak or timid. He was intelligent, sensitive, and self-reliant from a young age. But constantly being asked to step back made him feel as if love and attention were always reserved for someone else first. Whenever Jake tried to assert himself, his parents would gently redirect him in the name of family harmony. Over time, he learned to suppress his own emotions. Family dinners and gatherings became exercises in patience. When Nick caused trouble or Romy cried, everything stopped for them. Jake often sat quietly, unnoticed. "Give way to your sibling, Jake," Rob would say, his voice warm but final. Praise for Jake's achievements was brief. When he succeeded at school or completed a project, acknowledgement was fleeting, while affection flowed toward his siblings. Eventually, Jake learned to validate himself, though the emptiness never fully disappeared. Even family outings followed the same pattern. At baseball games, Rob focused on Nick, chose the best seats for Romy, and Jake accepted whatever remained. He was grateful to be included, yet quietly heartbroken. Always feeling third in his parents' hearts, Jake learned when to speak, when to yield, and when to remain silent to avoid conflict. His character became strong, observant, and independent, but shadowed by sadness. When he tried to express feeling overlooked, Rob would smile and say, "You're a good kid. I know you understand." Those words comforted and wounded him at the same time. As Nick's behavior worsened, their parents continued to shield him. Jake noticed early changes in his brother's sudden anger, disappearances, returns without explanation. He sensed something destructive growing, though he never labeled it. What tormented him most was not Nick, but the endless forgiveness. Every boundary dissolved. Every consequence vanished. Jake once suggested accountability, softly, but his words disappeared under their parents' belief that love alone would be enough. Night after night, Jake heard arguments and slamming doors, followed by silence. By morning, forgiveness returned. Jake saw that their love was sincere and blind, both a lifeline and a cage. He did not resent his parents for loving. Nicky resented that there was no space left for him to be weak. Over time, Jake understood that if he stayed, he would always be the one who stood behind. Leaving was not an impulse, but the result of years of silence. He chose independence, quietly. When he announced it, Rob simply said, "You're grown now. I trust you." Jake never knew whether that was faith or another form of letting go. Stepped into the world, determined to be known for himself. He pursued journalism, standing in front of cameras, not as Rob Reiner's son, but as a young reporter learning responsibility. He worked far from Hollywood, at local news stations, building his career without red carpets or shortcuts. Later, he moved cautiously into entertainment, taking small roles, writing, producing, and contributing steadily. His career didn't explode, but it endured. Each project was proof that he was not living in his father's shadow. Sports became another anchor. Hosting a Dodgers podcast connected him to memories of the rare, quiet moments he had shared with his father. Jake never wanted to compete with Rob. He wanted recognition without comparison. Years passed with distance. Phone calls were brief. Jake kept space, believing it was the price of freedom. Then came November 23, 2025. That evening, in Houston, Jake received a call from his father. Rob's voice was weaker, stripped of authority. He apologized for the past, admitting he had made Jake give way, made him silent, made him grow strong too soon. He spoke of Nick, now living at home again, increasingly unstable. He spoke of his failing health. He spoke of fear. And then, softly, Rob said what he had never said before. He told Jake that he was proud of him, not for accomplishments, but for who he had become. The call lasted nearly an hour. When it ended, Jake sat alone in silence, unaware it would be the last time his father would ever speak so openly. A week later, Rob was gone. Jake flew home in shock. Then came the final blow. Nick was arrested. Every warning from that final call suddenly made sense. What followed was rage, grief, and resolve. Jake fought to protect his parents' legacy, refusing to let their assets defend the person who destroyed them. He worked through legal barriers, sleepless nights, and relentless pressure. Driven not by revenge, but by justice. In rare quiet moments, Jake remembered his father's apology. It no longer felt incomplete. It felt like a man running out of time, trying to heal what he could. Jake shared this story, not to diminish his father, but to honor him honestly. Behind public admiration often lie private wounds. Sometimes love is real, but imperfect. Sometimes apologies arrive too late. For Jake, that final call was not just closure. It was the first time he truly felt seen.